welcome to Scott's Inverts. I'm Scott. You're going to see an invert in this video in the form of a burrowing tarantula, or as technically speaking, a fossorial tarantula. And fossorial basically means it lives down in a burrow. Anyway, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscription button for me because it really does help me out more than what you actually think. So, very basic setup. The spider in question is the Thai golden fringe tarantula, which is an old world species, Asian fossorial. So this is a basic setup, a basic fossorial setup for an Asian old world spider. Now with Asian fossorials, we need quite a tall enclosure. So we have gone for one, and we're going to go around 3/4 of the way up of this with a substrate. Now this particular enclosure is just over 8 inches across, 9 inches tall, and of course 8 inches back as well. Now it's really important with old worlds especially that we have secure lids on the enclosures, and this one, these metal pins actually turn around on the underneath and it locks in place. So we know once that lid's on there, it's not coming off and our spider isn't going to be able to push it off either. Now 3/4 of the way up is around there, so that's where the substrate is going to go up to, but I want to put some holes around. So what we need to do is assess the whole enclosure, decide which ones are going to be our front, and then go down the sides and the back, creating some holes just above where you know that surface layer of soil is going to be. And that's literally what I've done, going all the way around it. Now this is an old enclosure, so I'm not too fussed if I mess up the holes, but make sure those holes are about 1/4 of the size of the abdomen of the spider, because that way you know they are not going to escape. Now what this does is create airflow and helps to stop mold forming. If you're using cocoa fiber, you're pretty much going to get mold. One of the reasons I absolutely hate the stuff. Don't put any at the front, because then you've got that display side. And this is how I made those holes with this soldering gun. Now, other forms of making holes are available. It's your choice and your risk only when you're making these. So please be very careful. And we are ready to add the substrate. Now the substrate that I've gone for, I actually dug out a box that I found in the shed, and we've got some Irish peat moss. So that's what's going in here. And just look, it comes slightly damp, very slightly moist. So we're already halfway there when we're thinking about humidity. Now that's another thing. When you're looking at substrates, you want something that's going to hold that water and release it slowly. So you want some sort of an absorbent type soil in there. That's why I found peat moss to be really good, because it does absorb the water and actually hold it. Especially when you're thinking Asian fossorial and the environments where they come from. We do need that to be a high. So I have gone in with about 1.5 inches of substrate. Pour some water in. Now your soil might already be at this point what I'm trying to get to, so be very careful when you're adding water, but just mix it around. And what you'll notice is when you go in with your hand, it starts sticking to each other, so you start getting little bits of clumps, and that's literally where we want to be. And when you squeeze it together like that, look, it just sticks together. So we know when our spider creates that burrow, the webbing is going to hold it up, but the substrate itself is going to act as structural support for that burrow as well as. And what I like to do is 1.5 inches, give it a little bit of a spray, and then go in again with the next layer of substrate. And then every time you do spray it, just pat it down gently, make it nice and firm with your fingers, and then go in with your next layer. And again, if that next layer is a little bit on the dry side, add some water like we did previously, and you cannot go wrong. And if when you're using your substrate, if you come across any sticks or twigs, anything like this, take them out. They're just a hindrance to a fossorial spider. We want them to be able to burrow straight down. Now, I've not bored you with the full process of us actually filling up this enclosure with substrate. But what we have done is gone up to around about 1 inch below those air holes and tapping it down. Now don't worry about getting the substrate completely flat on the very top. It's not flat in the wild. There's lumps and bumps and all sorts. So that for me is about perfect. Now another little important thing often overlooked is, especially while there's no spider in there and we can go in and we can mess around, is grab yourself a microfiber cloth, just like the one that I've got here. Now, I'm not worried about the size or the back because I'm not going to be viewing the spider from that way. I'm going to be looking in that front panel all the time. So that's where I want to keep, or try and keep it as clean as possible. So I've just give that a nice little clean with the microfiber cloth. Now, the microfiber does pick up every single bit of dirt and water, and you want to just go round the brim of the actual enclosure, so when the lid seals, it's absolutely perfect. Now, our next step is to create a hide. Now, this can be a curved piece of cork bark, it can be a flat piece. Just remember, if you're going with a flat piece, you just have to make sure that you make a little bit more of a burrow entrance than what you normally would. So I'm just putting this in the corner, and what I then do is take some substrate and put it around the back, just sealing the very back of it off so there's no light coming in from the back. I mean, you can also put a little bit of moss over there and things like that, but I'm trying to keep this one as basic and as simple as I possibly can. Just tap it down, and what you also want to be thinking about is how secure that hide is. So if you've got a tall one, you want to make sure it's not going to topple over, it's not going to move, it's not going to fall down or squash that spider. Now, 2 fingers, that's how you make your hole. So we've got one actually underneath that hide, and I want to give the spider options. So I've just gone down the side in the corner with 2 fingers again. And what we call that hole, we call it a starter burrow. So we've gone in and made those starter burrows for our spider. Now we're looking down the top of the enclosure right now, and that is literally a milk bottle top full of water. The best advice with that I can give you is, as soon as you've seen there's no water in it, top it up, overfill it by about 4 times the amount of water that you've put into a milk bottle top, and of course you reduce that depending on what size water dish you actually use. Now, the spider that is going in here is Orthodoctonus tibalis, which is the Thai golden fringe tarantula, old spider, fossorial species, and an absolutely beautiful spider at the same time. I'm not going to kind of show you how I rehouse it. I think rehousing or transferring a spider from what we see there, which is a transportation tub, into its enclosure, or from one enclosure to another enclosure, it literally demands its own video. So sit back and enjoy the enclosure and this beautiful spider. Boom! Fossorial, Asian fossorial spiders. We've got that nailed. That is a basic setup. Absolutely awesome. Dead easy, dead simple, dead straightforward. None of the fancy stuff. It works, and our spider feels exceptionally comfortable in there as well as. Now, we can add more things to it. We can add a layer of moss across the top, and what that will do is help keep that moisture down in the substrate, and then the air slowly release it into that to create air humidity, as well as, if we keep on top of the humidity in that enclosure with spraying, with pouring water in every now and again, and making sure those bottom layers don't dry out, we will be completely fine with or without the moss. I personally adore moss, so a lot of my enclosures have moss in, and no doubt that one that we've done today will also get a little bit of moss put in there at some point in the future as well. Anyway, if you've made it this far and you're not subscribed, hit that subscription button for me. I can't stress how much it really does help small channels out. And if you really like what we're doing, hit that like button. And if you want to drop a comment down below, that would be absolutely awesome as well. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. And as always, we shall see you again on the next one.